Please help me subscribe to my channel and like it before I start. 1. Afternoon break in Spain. When the Spanish sun shines on the small town of Albanon, the entire village is immersed in the tranquility of the afternoon. The story follows a young girl named Eliana. Ariana is a resident of this small town and helps out on her father's farm every day. In the hot afternoon, she and her father cultivated the farmland together. The wind under the shade of the trees seemed to relieve the hot temperature, but Ariana still felt tired. Suddenly, the father stopped working, looked at his daughter and said, "Ariana, it's nap time, let's take a break." They returned home and their mother prepared cool juice and some snacks. The family sat down in the cool house, and Ariana felt a rare sense of tranquility. My father told stories from his youth, describing his love for the land and his dreams. Mother spoke softly of the family's history and their efforts on the land. At the end of her nap time, Ariana feels refreshed and re-energized. She and her father return to the farmland with a completely different mentality. They get to work, but this time feeling more energetic and enthusiastic. This siesta culture is commonplace in the small town of Albanon. This habit allows people to find a moment of peace and re-energize themselves in the hot midday, and also allows them to spend the second half of the day with more energy. Ariana often says that this peaceful nap time is more than just rest, it is an important time to connect with family and land. This afternoon rest culture allows people to find a moment of tranquility in the busy agricultural life, regroup their spirits, and inspire more creativity and vitality. 2. La Tomatina tomato fight. In the small town of Bunal, the last Wednesday of August is always a bustling event. It's the day of the tomato fight at La Tomatina. Let's tell a true story. Antonio, a resident of Bunal, has always been curious about this tomato fight, but has never participated because of his busy work and life. It wasn't until the eve of La Tomatina that year that he made up his mind to participate in this event that attracted world attention. Early that morning, the streets of Bunal were crowded with tourists and residents from all over the world. What Antonio felt was excitement and anticipation as he looked at the streets filled with thousands of ripe tomatoes. La Tomatina officially begins, and when people hear the sound of the order, they are like unleashing crazy beasts, throwing tomatoes in their hands at each other. Antonio joins the chaos, excited and surprised by the relaxed and joyful atmosphere. As the tomatoes were thrown, people's faces were stained with red, and laughter and cheers came one after another. Antonio is no exception. He throws with strangers and is completely immersed in the carnival. Time flies, and after the fierce tomato battle, the entire town of Bunal turned into a sea of red. People helped each other clean the streets, and the laughter still rang out. When Antonio returned home that night, he felt content and fulfilled. The tomato fight is not only a mind-blowing event, but also an event where people come together for fun and community spirit. Antonio deeply realized that La Tomatina is not only a tradition of the small town of Bunal, but also a cultural and social expression. 3. Figures of the Spanias H. Campanile. There is an ancient bell tower located in a small town in Madrid. Its name is the Bell Tower of San Martin. This clock tower has a long history in the local area and has a peculiar feature: its clock uses a 25-hour clock. The story begins centuries ago, in this small town, where people lived according to the movement of the sun. Farmers and craftsmen here spend the hours between sunrise and sunset fulfilling a full day's work. In order to better adapt to the changes in daylight hours in summer and winter, they began to use a 25-hour clock. The St. Martin Bell Tower is famous for this. Its clock not only marks the correct time, but also reflects the unique understanding of time of the residents of this town. The bell of the bell tower is no longer just a simple time teller, but also a symbol of the life and rhythm of this community. The main character in the story is a young clockmaker named Miguel, the caretaker of the San Martin Bell Tower. His family has worked in this clock tower for generations and passed down the 25-hour clock. Miguel has great respect for this tradition and the history of the bell tower. For Miguel, the 25-hour clock of the San Martin Bell Tower is not only a record of time, but also a connection with his family and community. Every time the bell rings, he feels that he carries the weight of history and shoulders the responsibility of passing on this special system. Even as modern society gradually adapts to the 24-hour clock, the 25-hour clock of the St. Martin Campanile still rings from time to time, bringing a touch of nostalgia and unique surprise to the town. This clock tower and its 25-hour clock bear witness to the history and culture of this town and have become the pride of this community. 4. Dialectal differences in Spanish. Dialect differences are abundant in Spain, and the town in the story, Ocalate, illustrates this diversity. The town is famous for its unique dialect, and the main character of the story is a young girl named Carmen. Carmen grew up in a small town in northern Spain. Her parents were residents of Ocalate, while Carmen's grandparents were from Andalusia in southern Spain. This family background meant that Carmen heard two completely different Spanish languages during her childhood. When Carmen was young, she was often confused because her family didn't speak the same Spanish language. My parents spoke Spanish with a small-town northern dialect, while my grandparents used a unique Andalusian accent and vocabulary. This made Carmen feel a little frustrated in her use of language. As she grew up, Carmen came to understand the cultural diversity this dialect difference represented. She found that the two dialects reflected the historical and cultural characteristics of different regions. The dialect of the parents is closely related to the local traditions and way of life, while the dialect of the grandparents carries the history and culture of the southern region. Carmen's story is not only her own upbringing, but also a microcosm of the diversity of the Spanish language. This dialect difference is not only a change in language, but also a reflection of Spain's rich and diverse culture. As Carmen learns to respect and appreciate this difference, she begins to realize that the country's linguistic diversity is a valuable cultural asset that deserves to be cherished and passed on. 5. El Ocalate Nature Reserve. There is an amazing story in the El Ocalate Nature Reserve in Spain. A photographer here named Alice had an unforgettable experience. Alice has always had a passion for natural landscapes, and after hearing about El Ocalate's unique desert landscape, she immediately decided to go and photograph it. When she stepped into the only desert in Europe, she was shocked by the sight before her. This desert is dotted with dunes and hills, creating a breathtaking landscape. She set out to capture the strange landscapes here and transform them into unforgettable photographs. While she was searching for the best shooting angle in the desert, she met a local tour guide named Marco. Marco is a resident of this area and knows the desert well. Marco told Alice about the formation of this desert and its place in the hearts of the locals. He shares the unique variety of plants and animals found in the desert and how these creatures have adapted to the extreme environment. The two began working together, with Marco taking Alice to every corner of the desert, guiding her to discover the most incredible views and perspectives. This collaboration not only made Alice's photography more vivid, but also gave her a deeper understanding of the ecology of this special desert. After returning home, Alice began to organize her photography to present the beauty of this El Ocalate desert to the world. Her work not only showcases the splendor and diversity of nature, but also expresses her respect for the desert and local culture. This collaboration with Marco made Alice deeply appreciate the mystery of nature and the symbiosis between man and nature. This story is not only a photographic journey, but also an in-depth exploration of the El Ocalate Nature Reserve. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel and click the like bell.